Welcome back here with Newsday. It is no secret excessive phone use is having an impact on our lives. It interrupts our sleep, can lead to poor concentration and affects social interactions. Joining us live is Natasha Robinson, the health editor at the Australian newspaper. Natasha, good to see you. Thanks for your time. I think at a basic level, we all realise that our phone usage isn't particularly healthy. Tell us, though, what are the experts telling you about what scrolling is actually doing to our brains?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting situation, Ash, because I think we've got kind of, psychology, psychiatry-wise, the kind of reality of people's lives moving ahead of the science and the classification, if you like. There has been quite an active debate for a while as to whether sort of compulsive phone use is actually an addiction. But it hasn't been sort of deemed as such in the sort of psychiatry manuals, etc. But the experts that I've been speaking to are really likening the actual sort of hits of dopamine that you get from many apps to the process that takes place when you're playing the pokies. And they say that this kind of behavioural addiction in terms of compulsive phone use is actually very similar to that behavioural addiction of gambling and especially with poker machines. So there's this sort of process going on whereby the brain is just kind of in this constant state of arousal, and there's certain apps that are worse than others in terms of doing this to our brain, in particular the social media apps which are explicitly designed to be addictive. So they're giving you this kind of constant reinforcement. They call it an intermittent reinforcement where, the process of getting kind of likes to your, photos or posts or tweets gives the brain this sort of sense of reward that comes intermittently. And it also comes with kind of very compelling sort of like signals, like the little ding of your phone or, whatever kind of notification you get that gives you this kind of sense that people are reinforcing what you're saying or what you're posting, etc. So I think it is a very, addictive process for many people. And it is very scary when you start to look into the health effects that this does have. So you're talking about this constant state of arousal in the brain that, these constant hits of dopamine, increased cortisol, and all of those processes which actually switch on the sympathetic nervous system, which is, designed to shut down overnight, actually keep you in this state of being switched on for much longer than you should be in a kind of normal 24-hour cycle. So it's especially, destructive if you sort of use the phone a lot in the couple of hours before bedtime, because it does alter your body clock, and that comes about not only as a result of kind of not winding down, but also the light exposure you're actually getting from the phone screen. So it is detrimental to people's health if their body clocks are being extended in this way, and they're getting this sense of constant arousal and a burnout kind of process. It has effects not only in terms of our mood and our mental health, but also in terms of our physiology. So things like it actually kicks off a process of accelerated aging, and it sort of makes you more likely to get sick because your immune system is kind of in this sort of constant state of arousal and gets worn out as well. And that can even potentially lead down the track to, later in life, it's posited by some people, things like an increased risk of dementia and, things like, if the immune system is not working quite as it should, that immune surveillance that sort of wards off cancer can fail as well. You may even be more likely to be susceptible to certain cancers. Now, all of this is quite speculative, but certainly this is what some doctors are telling me in terms of what they think are the kind of downstream effects of this constant state of arousal and this disruption of the circadian rhythms. Scary stuff.
So do they have any answers to that, Natasha? I mean, I know when they talk about addiction, they talk about one of the big issues is acknowledging that you have a problem in the first place, which some of us might be reluctant to do when it comes to phone usage. Is it worth trying to even fight against this, or is this just the way the world is now.
No, absolutely. I think it's worth trying to get this stuff under control. And as you say, that is absolutely right, that the first step in the process is acknowledgement of the problem. So, there are online quizzes you can take. There's a very well-known one by a particular academic centre in the US who are actually a centre for technology addiction. That's actually the name of their organisation, and they have a test that you can do to actually sort of assess whether or not your phone use is compulsive. And once you start to kind of look at these questions, you just Google, compulsion, mobile phones, it'll come straight up. But once you start to look at these kinds of questions, it is a bit of a wake-up call. There's things like, how many of us, and it's obviously, highly illegal and no one would like to admit that they do it, but, how many of us have sent a text while they're driving? How many of us have, sat down to dinner and had their phone on the table next to us and, sort of not, felt uncomfortable if it's not right there with you? How many of us sleep with the phone in the bedroom and, feel this sense of, oh my God, where's my phone, if it's not right there beside you, if you're not available at all hours of the night, and this stuff is interrupting our relationships. It's very profound in terms of children and babies, because, babies in particular rely so heavily for their development on eye contact with adults. And if you've got adults who are distracted, it's very damaging to babies' development. And I think, people don't quite realise, if they're sort of in it, a lot of people haven't quite confronted the fact that it is actually quite a compulsion. But I think the things that they suggest in terms of breaking that cycle, like if you just put the phone down, you remove it, put limits on your screen time, all that sort of thing, that's all great, but it's not going to kind of break that cycle of kind of being in this, looking for those constant sort of hits that you get from the phone. So you need to sort of retrain your brain, actually. And what the psychiatrists who are interested in this area are recommending are, slow pursuits, hobbies, pursuits that demand your full attention, so you can't actually think about anything else while you're doing them. And if you can do enough and incorporate this into your life, enough of the time, you can kind of break that cycle of this sort of constant state of arousal. So they're talking about things like, reading is wonderful. And I mean, how many of us just find, oh my God, I can't even read anything anymore, but, trying to just do 10 minutes at a time, cooking, painting, anything creative, knitting, crochet, yoga, even just playing a team sport is really great. Yoga is fantastic, but watching TV is kind of just too passive. So you don't get that sense of extended concentration that you get from these other types of activities. One of the best is actually playing music, learning a musical instrument, learning a language, all those sorts of things. And even just doing any course of study, because even if you're on a laptop, if you're actually deeply reading and engaging with kind of, content that's academic, that stimulates you, that's a different thought process than if you're just sitting there scrolling away. So, work in progress, but I think definitely something worthy to aim for all of us.
Worthy indeed. Natasha Robinson, appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Ash. Bye, Ash.